When my husband forgot my sacrifices, he did not say it out loud. He did not shout. He did not argue. He simply stopped noticing. That morning, I stood in the kitchen the way I always did. Bare feet on the cold floor, hands moving without thought. I packed his lunch, folded his shirt, set his tea on the table exactly where he liked it. He walked past me without looking up. "Did you see my keys?" he asked, already searching. "They're on the shelf," I said. "Oh," he replied. "Not thank you. Just oh." The door closed behind him with a soft sound. Too soft for something that felt so heavy. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet return. That was when I realized something had changed. Not suddenly, but slowly. I had given him my youth, my strength, my quiet years. And somewhere along the way, those things had become invisible. This is not a story of hate. It is not a story of blame. It is a story of how love can turn into habit, how sacrifice can become expected, and how a woman can disappear while still standing in the same room. This is the story of how I learned what it means to give everything and still be forgotten. I met my husband when I was young, so young that I thought love was meant to be hard. He was kind then, not loud or dramatic, just steady. We married with simple hopes. A home, a family, a life built slowly. At first, we built it together. We worked long days, shared tired meals, dreamed quietly in the dark. When our first child was born, everything changed. Not in a bad way, just in a demanding one. I stayed home, not because I was forced, but because someone had to. He said, "I'll take care of us." I believed him. I cooked. I cleaned. I stayed awake through fevers and crying nights. I put my own dreams on a shelf. Not forever, I told myself. Just for now. Years passed like that. He grew at work. Promotions. Respect. Confidence. I stayed where I was, making sure life ran smoothly behind the scenes. I did not complain. I told myself this was love. When money was tight, I stretched meals. When he was tired, I stayed quiet. When he succeeded, I clapped the loudest. People admired him. They praised his dedication. They rarely saw me. At family gatherings, I served food while he talked. At school meetings, I went alone. He would say, "You're good at these things." And I believed that meant I mattered. Over time, the thank yous faded. The questions about my day stopped. Not because he became cruel, but because he became comfortable. Comfort can be dangerous that way. I noticed it in small moments. He stopped asking before making plans. Stopped noticing when I was tired. I told myself it was normal. Marriage changes. People grow. But I did not realize then that I was the only one still bending. One evening, I sat at the table alone. Dinner was ready, waiting. When he arrived late, he barely looked at the food. "I already ate," he said. I nodded and put the plates away. That night, as I washed dishes in silence, I felt something crack. Not loudly, just enough to let the truth slip in. I had not stopped loving him, but I had stopped being seen. The days began to feel the same. Not peaceful, just repeated. I woke before everyone else. I always had. The house needed time to be prepared for the day. I moved quietly so I would not wake him. I used to think that was love. I made breakfast even when I was not hungry. I packed lunches even when no one noticed. I folded clothes that were worn once and tossed aside. He came and went with his own rhythm. Work. Phone calls. Meetings. A life full of noise. Mine was full of pauses. At first, I tried to speak. Not to complain. Just to connect. "How was your day?" I asked one evening. "Busy," he replied, eyes still on his phone. I waited a moment. "Mine was long too," I added softly. He nodded, distracted. "That's life," he said. That was the end of the conversation. I told myself he did not mean anything by it. He was tired. Everyone gets tired. But tiredness does not explain forgetting. He forgot to tell me when he would be late. Forgot to ask before making plans. Forgot to notice when I stopped talking. I stopped dressing up at home. There was no point. I stopped sharing small stories. He was not listening. Some nights, I lay awake beside him. The room dark. His breathing steady. I wondered if he noticed how quiet I had become. Or if quiet was easier for him. When friends visited, he laughed loudly. Told stories about work. Spoke with confidence. I smiled and poured tea. Someone once said to me, "You're lucky. He's such a good provider." I smiled then too. But inside, I felt something twist. Providing is not the same as seeing. Weeks passed. Then months. The children grew more independent. They needed me less. And suddenly, I realized how empty my days were. How little of myself remained. I had stopped asking what I wanted. Stopped imagining anything beyond the routine. One afternoon, I felt unwell. Not seriously. Just weak. I sat on the couch and rested. The house was quiet. When he came home, I told him. I didn't feel well today. He paused for a moment. "Oh," he said. "I hope you're better now." Then he turned on the television. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom. Not because I was sick, but because I felt alone. I began to notice how often I apologized. For things that were not my fault. Sorry dinner is late. Sorry I forgot. Sorry to bother you. I did not remember when I started saying sorry for existing. There was a moment one evening that stayed with me. He was talking about his work. About a problem he was facing. I listened carefully, the way I always did. When he finished, I said gently, "That sounds hard." He nodded. "Yeah." Then he stood up and left the room. I sat there alone. Words still sitting in my chest. That was when I understood something important. I was no longer a partner. I was background noise. Still, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if I spoke. Afraid of what it would mean if nothing changed. Love teaches us to wait. But sometimes, waiting teaches us how much we have lost. I did not know then that the breaking point was close. That one small moment would finally force me to look at myself. But it was already coming. Slowly. Like a door closing without a sound. The moment did not arrive loudly. There was no shouting. No broken plates. It came the way many truths do. Softly. Almost politely. It was a Sunday afternoon. The kind that feels slow and empty. I had spent the morning cleaning the house. Not because it was dirty, but because cleaning gave my hands something to do. He sat in the living room, scrolling through his phone. Occasionally smiling at something on the screen. I made tea and placed a cup beside him. He did not look up. "Thank you," he said, without meeting my eyes. I sat across from him. For a moment, I just watched. His face looked older than before. So did mine, reflected in the dark screen of the television. I thought about all the years we had shared. The early days. The dreams we once spoke about in low voices at night. I did not plan to say anything. The words simply came out. "Do you remember when I stopped working?" I asked. He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "When I left my job," I said. "So you could focus on yours. So the children would have someone at home." He shrugged. "That was a long time ago." "Yes," I said quietly. "It was." He went back to his phone. Something inside me shifted then. Not anger. Something colder. I realized he did not remember. Or worse, he did not think it mattered. That night, I could not sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling. I remembered the nights I stayed awake with sick children. The meals I cooked with tired hands. The chances I let go of. Not because I was forced, but because I believed we were building something together. I had told myself that sacrifice was love. That being needed was enough. But I was no longer needed. And I was no longer seen. The next day, I tried again. He was getting ready for work. Tying his tie. I feel tired, I said. Not just in my body. In my heart. He looked at his watch. I don't have time for this right now. That sentence stayed with me. I repeated it in my head. I don't have time for this. I wondered how many times I had made time for him. How often I had pushed myself aside. That evening, he came home late. I did not ask why. He ate dinner in silence. Then stood up. I'm meeting someone tomorrow, he said. For dinner. Who? I asked. A colleague, he replied quickly. He did not ask if I minded. He did not notice how still I became. That was when the truth finally reached me. Not as a thought. As a feeling. I had slowly been moved out of my own place in his life. Not replaced. Just forgotten. I went into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The room felt unfamiliar. I looked at my hands. The lines on them told a story. A story no one was listening to anymore. For the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. Who am I, if I am not useful to him? The answer scared me. Because I did not know. I cried that night. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quiet tears. The kind that fall when something finally breaks. I did not confront him. I did not accuse. Instead, I sat with the truth. That my sacrifices had become invisible. That love without recognition slowly turns into loneliness. And that something had to change. Even if I did not yet know how. The days after that realization felt different. Not heavier. Just clearer. I stopped waiting for him to notice my silence. I stopped hoping he would suddenly remember everything I had been. Instead, I listened. To myself. I noticed how tired I was. Not from work. From years of shrinking. One morning, I woke up early. The house was quiet. I made tea and sat by the window. The light outside was soft and pale. For the first time in a long while, I did not plan my day around him. I simply Saturday. I asked myself what I wanted. The question felt strange. I had spent so many years asking what he needed. What the children needed. What the house needed. But me. I had not asked that in a long time. That afternoon, I went for a walk alone. Just around the block. The air felt cool. My steps were slow. I passed houses that looked like mine. Lives that might have felt like mine too. And I realized something important. I had confused sacrifice with love. I thought giving everything meant I would always belong. But belonging should not require disappearing. When I came home, he was there. Watching television. He glanced at me. You went out? He asked. Yes, I said. Just that. No explanation. No apology. He nodded and turned back to the screen. And strangely, that was okay. That night, I did not cook his favorite meal. I cooked something simple. When he asked why, I said, I wanted this. He looked surprised. Then shrugged. I felt a small strength settle inside me. Quiet. Steady. Over the next weeks, I changed gently. Not in ways others would notice. But inside. I stopped filling the silence with effort. I stopped trying to earn attention. If he spoke, I listened. If he didn't, I didn't chase. I began reading again. Old books I loved once. I started calling an old friend. We talked about nothing important. And everything. One evening, he asked, Are you upset with me? I thought carefully before answering. No, I said. I'm just awake now. He did not understand. But I didn't need him to. I had learned something quiet but powerful. I could exist without being useful. I could be whole without being praised. And that changed how I looked at him. I no longer needed him to remember my sacrifices. I remembered them myself. They mattered. Even if no one else named them. One night, as we sat at the same table, I noticed how different the room felt. The same walls. The same chairs. But I was no longer empty inside them. I had stopped asking to be seen. And in doing so, I finally saw myself. Time has a way of settling things. Not fixing them. Just placing them where they belong. These days, Our house is still the same. The same table. The same walls. But I'm different inside it. I no longer measure my worth by how much I give, or how often I am remembered. I have learned that love should not erase a person. It should leave space for them to breathe. Some mornings, I still feel a small ache. Not sharp. Just quiet. It comes when I think of the years I gave without question. The meals. The nights awake. The parts of myself I set aside. But I do not regret loving. I only regret forgetting myself while doing it. I now take my time. With my thoughts. With my days. I sit longer with my tea. I walk slower. I listen to my own voice again. And it sounds familiar. Like an old friend who never truly left. Sometimes, he notices the change. Sometimes, he doesn't. And that is okay. I have stopped waiting for recognition to heal me. I have learned that peace comes when you stop asking permission to matter. If there is one thing I would say to anyone listening tonight, it is this. Love deeply. But do not disappear. Care for others. But do not abandon yourself. Because one day, when the noise fades and the house grows quiet, you will still be there. And you deserve to feel whole. Seen. Enough. I am no longer the woman who waits to be remembered. I am the woman who remembers herself. And that, I have learned, is a kind of love that never leaves.